In this presentation, we'll show you some of the new features in ESCO Store Visualizer version 2511. Creating a shelf panel, we now have the opportunity to set the slope of the panel. So here you can see that we can pick between a flat or a wired panel. The wired panel, we can have the fine or the more spaced out wires available right there. So obviously when placing a product on that, in the case of a solid panel, that is not a problem. In the case of the wired panel, however, we have to remember to activate this invisible flat transparent surface on top of that wireframe in order for us to be able to place that. So activate the create on transparent right there in order to place that. And now we can easily place. Also be aware, if you activate the physics engine, that of course these objects will now roll off these shelves. The maximum slope can be set to 45 degrees. So if we would generate one and replace this one here, you can see that this would be useful for a magazine stand, for example. Now let's talk a little bit about creating models from GS1 images. We also included an option to create models from just a front image. And then we have the option there to create models from a folder. So here are some examples of images that I just downloaded from the internet. You can see different shapes here with a cap, a tube. Here we have an example where I have two images, very common to find this front image and a back image. You'll notice when importing models that you will have the interface which is slightly different from the one that we saw in previous versions of Store Visualizer. So let's say, for example, we want to import this image right there. You can see that the image does not immediately get imported. It ends up in a queue right there. And the reason for that is because now we have a bunch of options available right there to influence how that image is going to be imported. So we have image background removal options available right there. Here we can see the import was successfully done and it was generated from one single image. We can see that image in the model browser right there. So it was able to automatically create a three-dimensional model from this one single front image. Now, as mentioned before, we could select an entire folder, and then you will see all the images lined up in that queue. You'll notice a column right there for GS1 where it detects if the image is having a transparent background and if it's named properly following the GS1 convention. For GS1 images, we have different options to determine how the background is going to be removed. Same for other images. And then as the import happens, the images will be converted automatically in 3D models. So here you can see the third one was generated from both a front and a back image. The next one from a single image. Again, here we can see a bottle shape being imported. A can shape from a single image. Remember the front and back image here. And so this is something that can run overnight, where you have a whole set of images that you want to import. Those can be competitive images, or it could be your own products. And this process really helps to populate your store in order then to be able to do consumer insight testing or A/B testing, for example, between your product and a competitor's product. Let's go ahead and abort right there. Actually, when you click on cancel, you see that you can still resume your import process. Here you can see some of the options you can use for single image generation, where it automatically determines the shape. This is based on AI technology. When you do import, you have a slider there where you can influence the shape from round to more tapered. And as you can see, when you move that slider over to the right, the shape will change. So here we have also metadata that we can associate with our imported files. So this is a CSV file that we can open, and then we can choose how to map those metadata fields from that comma separated value file to our models, right? So let's say, for example, the description A holds the size of my model, which is the model height right there. We can go ahead and map that metadata field automatically to the description. Something else we can do is using the material editor is after import, we can look at the different parts of the 3D model. If we look at the main body, we can see the texture that's being mapped to that part of the design. If I would take that specific JPEG in an image editor and make that transparent and reload that, we can see that we can also add right here a color overlay, and then change that to a container with a liquid, set a thickness to the label. The material we can set to plastic, change the color of the liquid, And then using the volume, we can fill that bottle. So there you have it. Thanks for watching.